Hi. Hey. How do you smile? Hey guys, I'm Sandeep and welcome back to RevAtlas. In today's video, we're going to be doing a camera comparison, but one that's a bit different from our usual camera comparisons, and we'll be basically taking a look at the Realme XT smartphone. So this is one of the best camera phones under 20k rupees available right now, and comes with a 64 megapixel primary camera at the back. It's a crazy setup and it's really good in terms of the price to performance ratio as well. But a lot of people have been asking us, how does it actually stack up to a flagship camera or a high-end camera phone? What is the difference between a high-end camera phone and something like this? If they can very well get the same results with a camera phone such as the Realme XT, why should anyone in fact invest in a flagship smartphone? And that brings us to today's video. We'll be comparing the XT to the iPhone 11. So of course, in terms of the sheer number of pixels and in terms of the number of sensors, the 11 automatically loses. There are 4 cameras on the back of the XT, while there are 2 at the back of the iPhone 11, and the resolution, in fact, on the iPhone 11, if you combine all 3 cameras, that is the back 2 cameras and the front camera, all put together doesn't actually even reach 64 megapixels. So in terms of resolution and number of sensors and the cameras, it's definitely losing already. But what we're trying to find out in this video is how exactly does it differ from a flagship product in terms of the camera, and if it can't reach that level, how close does it get in terms of giving a camera experience like a flagship itself. And before we get started, please do make sure to give us a thumbs up at the end of the video if you happen to like it, and also do hit the subscribe button for more such interesting videos. Now let's get started with this camera comparison. The Realme XT has a 64 megapixel 1x1.72 inch Samsung GW1 sensor with f1.8 aperture and 0.8 micron pixel size, but it also has 3 other camera sensors in the form of a secondary ultra wide angle 8 megapixel f2.2 sensor with 1/4 inch sensor size and 1.12 micron pixel size, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. The iPhone 11 has a primary 12 megapixel f1.8 camera with optical image stabilization and a secondary ultra-wide angle 12 megapixel camera with f2.4 aperture and 120-degree field of view. iPhone 11 is faster in terms of focusing and in terms of shutter speed, as well as saving or writing the photos onto the phone. The dynamic range is better on the iPhone 11, and so are the colors, while the XT tends to oversaturate and also be more contrasty. The greens in particular start to look yellowish on the XT photos, while they're more natural on the 11. The iPhone 11 photos have lesser noise and are overall cleaner than the XT, which does show noise in the shadows even in well-lit conditions. Examining the EXIF information also reveals that the iPhone chooses as low an ISO as possible, while Realme is more carefree about the ISO levels. In terms of pure detail, the XT does have an upper hand, as you can zoom in quite a bit and still retain very good sharpness. The iPhone also does very well for a 12 megapixel phone, but the benefits of pixel binning and all that extra resolution clearly does show. Coming to low light images, the iPhone 11 is a huge step forward for Apple and right now is one of the best night modes on the market. Since it automatically toggles night mode, we shall compare the night mode to nightscape mode images on the XT. The regular shots are worse than nightscape ones anyway. The iPhone 11 shots have much lower noise, better details, colors, and are more steady compared to the XT. All attributes that you would look for in a good low light performer. The benefit of OIS is shown here, as the image on the XT shows shakes despite having a faster shutter speed than the 11 photo. Since they can't go too slow on the exposure, they also had to bump up the ISO on the XT and hence the higher noise levels too. In terms of portrait mode, the 11, as you can see straight away, gets the colors right, while the XT changes the tones. The edge detection and blurring are also superior on the iPhone 11, and in some scenarios the blurring is too overpowering and artificial with the XT. In other instances, however, you may fail to get a blur at all, as the iPhone is generally very specific about the distance you need from the subject or object for the effect to kick in. On the XT, as well as most other Android phones, as long as you can focus on the subject or object, the effect will be applied even though the UI may suggest moving closer or further away. Both the ultra-wide angle cameras are able to capture more dramatic angles that definitely elevate certain scenes when it comes to the composition. The iPhone 11 has a wider field of view, better dynamic range, as well as less distortion at the edges and better overall sharpness. However, more importantly, the way the images turn out from the cameras in comparison to the primary cameras are very different. The iPhone 11 outputs images that seem like they literally have been shot with the same sensor, but just a wider lens, while the XT is clearly evident that it's shot with different lens and sensor. The XT gets quite close in some instances, but in others, it totally changes the look and feel, but at the very least it seems to go for a different color and white balance approach. In low light conditions, the ultra wide angle camera on both aren't very good, and you have slightly better details and sharpness on the iPhone 11 shots, but they look very underexposed and there's no night mode for the ultra wide angle camera. Exposure is better on the XT shots, but they are very noisy and soft, and nightscape mode makes things a bit better but not by much, and we'd still choose the regular camera and move back a bit if possible to capture the photo on both in low light. The front-facing camera on the iPhone 11 is again a 12MP sensor with f2.2 aperture, while the Realme X2 gets a 16MP f2 unit. The images have extremely good dynamic range and amazing detail on the iPhone 11, which is surprising since the XT itself was one of the best in those two aspects. But the iPhone just takes it a step ahead and also has the ability to capture a wider frame in the regular mode if needed for those group shots or shots with landscapes or buildings in the background. In terms of portrait mode, dynamic range is clearly better on the iPhone 11 again, while you can see that there is no HDR processing happening on the XT when the portrait is applied. However, you can see here that the 11 went terribly wrong with the edge detection despite having all fancy hardware for depth sensing, and it either works really well or goes terribly wrong like this, while the XT did much better in terms of edge detection. In terms of video, there's really no contest to be honest, but we are going to do it for the sake of comparison. The iPhone 11 shoots up to 4K 60fps video with EIS using both cameras, while the Realme XT can do up to 4K 30fps without EIS and 1080p 30fps with EIS. Regardless of which resolution and frame rate you choose, iPhone captures better video with much better dynamic range, detail, sharpness, stabilization, and colors. The iPhone can record videos with the ultra-wide angle camera as well, which the XT still can't. The front-facing camera can capture 1080p 30fps with EIS on the XT, while the iPhone 11 can again do 4K 60fps with EIS with the front camera too. The quality still remains hugely superior on the iPhone 11 here as well. So this is the front-facing camera on the iPhone 11 now capturing 4K 60fps video. Let me know what you guys think about the overall sharpness, the dynamic range, the stabilization, and how well it's picking up my voice as well, and the quality compared to a 1080p 30fps mode. This is the front-facing camera on the Realme XT capturing 1080p video at 30fps. Let me know what you guys think about the overall sharpness, the dynamic range, how well it's picking up my voice in this particular scenario as well, and the stabilization. So that was the camera comparison between the iPhone 11 and the Realme XT, and in fact it was an interesting comparison, and although I did not really expect the XT to win in any scenario as such, it did come ahead in terms of the detailing overall and the sharpness, especially thanks to the huge megapixel count, and also in terms of the portrait mode on the front camera. So that's like two areas where it did manage to beat the iPhone 11, but only just. And overall, if you look at it in terms of the performance, the XT is not too bad, considering that the smartphone is essentially 1/4 or even lesser the price of the iPhone 11. It's put up a really strong fight, but you do see that there is a difference in terms of the refinement or the final output. For example, in terms of the difference between the primary camera and the wide angle camera, the difference in the colors, the difference in the way the image is processed, the superior video recording, the stabilization, again the consistency across all three cameras is insane on the iPhone 11, and that is one of the reasons why you pay that extra bucks, apart from the performance and all the other things. In terms of just cameras, the consistency in the cameras, the performance in low light, all these are the things that you kind of pay the extra bucks for when you go for a flagship smartphone. And although the gap is slowly bridging and mid-range smartphones such as the XT are getting better and better with each passing day and each passing variant, there will still be a time, I think, where flagships are still set apart from the mid-ranger devices because of these small refinements or these small touches that make it premium, and that's why they charge you the premium for the device itself. But still, great effort to Realme for actually coming so close to a high-end smartphone such as Apple. Of course, at the end of the day, it's a no-brainer as to which has the better quality, but it's still interesting to see that smartphones have come such a long way, and it's also interesting to see where we'll go from here. So that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next one.